Welcome to a short video summary of our Sony ZF9 LCD TV review. You can read the full in-depth review of this TV via the link in the description or by clicking the card at the top right of this video. The written review will cover more details of the TV performance, so be sure to visit AVForums to read it all. The ZF9 is Sony's replacement to the very well received Z9F from 2016, which has been a forum favourite with some members thanks to its performance with HDR content. Indeed, the Z9F was the HDR TV of the Year in our 2017 Editor's Choice Awards. So, the ZF9 has some pretty big boots to fill to match or even better the performance of the previous model. This review sample was provided by Crampton and Moore and is a brand new sealed retail model from their stock. This review wouldn't have been possible without the loan of this TV. If you'd like to support our reviews, you can give Richard a call on 01302 365 760 or email him and mention AVForums. The ZF9 uses the same X1 Ultimate processor also found in the recently reviewed AF9 OLED TV. With its advanced picture processing capabilities and image manipulation features such as object-based HDR remaster, backlight master drive, extended dynamic range pro, X-motion clarity, object-based super resolution and 4K HDR and dual database processing, to name just a few. Plus, the ZF9 has what Sony call X-wide angle. This increases the viewing angle of this LCD TV so colour and contrast do not shift as much as they do on a traditional VA panelled LCD TV. The ZF9 is a good looking TV, but it does have a noticeable bezel and is rather deep compared to the ultra slim bezel free OLED designs of late. The bezel around the screen is 10mm wide on the sides and top, with 15mm to the bottom of the panel and a further 1mm strip under this as a design touch. There is a silver Sony logo bang in the centre of the bottom bezel, and on the top left we have a Bravia logo in small lettering. There's nothing else to the front of the panel, which looks minimalist and clean, with a metal finish that is very similar to the kind of grainy texture you'd find on a DSLR camera body. You have two sturdy angled feet which are fixed roughly 30 inches apart on the 65-inch panel. The feet point outwards and need a surface of at least 44 to 45 inches wide to sit properly. My TV unit here is only 42 inches wide, so I had to reverse the feet so they're pointing inwards to fit. This works fine, but it does take away from the original design. You can further hide cables by routing them through the stands. The panel edge has a two-piece design where the recess is not quite in the centre, unlike other Sony designs. Looking at the ZF9 from the front, the connections are positioned to the left rear panel. They are sideways and downwards positioned and can be hidden by a plastic pop-over cover. There are 4 HDMI full bandwidth ports with eARC on HDMI 3 and all 4 are compatible with HDCP 2.3 copy protection. HDMI 1 is sideways facing with the other 3 downwards positioned. Also on the side is a CI interface, AV in, headphone and IR blaster inputs along with 2 USB ports. Downwards facing we have a further USB port, the 3 HDMI along with optical digital out, LAN, 2 satellite tuners and an RF terrestrial socket. The power input is also positioned to the rear right of the panel and this is fixed. The supplied remote control is identical to the one we used with the AF8 and AF9 OLED TVs and is a real disappointment. It does everything you'd want it to and is logically laid out and fairly intuitive to use, but the plastic finish and rubberized buttons that only just stick up above the unit make it feel extremely cheap and difficult to justify on such an expensive TV. The new Android Audio setup on the ZF9 is a joy to use given the issues we've had and experienced with Android TV in the past. We don't have any issues with crashing or the system hanging when we put it under pressure. Everything was slick and intuitive to use and button presses resulted in apps loading or switching instantaneously, as they should. There is also a good selection of apps available with all the terrestrial catch-up services including BBC iPlayer and of course YouTube, Netflix and Amazon all offering 4K playback. Only Netflix and Amazon have HDR capabilities however. For watching TV channels, it features the excellent UView tuner and EPG controls. This makes channel surfing extremely easy with complete use of the directional keys on the remote and a detailed enough now and next right at your fingertips. You can also select your most viewed channels and access these through the homepage of the TV. All the catch-up services are also available through the UView interface. The panel uses a full array local dimming or fouled backlight, which appears to have 104 zones from our testing. This is a significant difference when compared to the ZD9, which had close to 6 times the number of zones. As we discovered with the AF9, the Sony picture presets have been changed for the Master Series models, and gone is Cinema Pro to be replaced with Custom, and Cinema Home is now just Cinema. Custom should be the most accurate picture mode preset out of the box to the industry standards. It has to be said that after so many reviews recently where the out-of-the-box grayscale has been accurate, it's rather disappointing to see that the ZF9 is not very accurate here. Gamma tracks well at BT1886, but the grayscale has a progressively cyan bias from around 30 IRE up in the scale, with a real lack of red energy. We have the calibration controls on board the ZF9 to correct this easily enough, but out of the box should be far better than this on a Master Series TV. Moving to the Rec 709 colour gamut, we see that indeed there is a cyan pool of the saturation points in the tracking graph. This pool is not large enough to cause any significant issues that the majority of normal viewers will see, but had the grayscale been a tad more accurate out of the box, we probably could have seen excellent colour tracking here as well. With there being calibration controls available and a new CMS on the Master Series TVs, we set about trying to get the image quality a little more accurate. Looking at the grayscale, you can see that delta errors are now all under 1, which is well below the visible threshold of 3, and there are no errors visible on screen within the grayscale. This is an excellent result, and we just wish that the ZF9 could have been closer to this accuracy out of the box. Gamma tracks well at BT1886, and overall, we couldn't expect any better from the ZF9. Looking to the colour gamut saturation tracking, we can see that just correcting the grayscale was enough for everything to fall back into place. This gave us a delta error average of 0.8, and luminance was also excellent, giving us reference levels of accuracy for SDR content. Again, it would have been nice on a Master Series to have seen this out of the box, but rest assured that a professional will be able to calibrate the ZF9 perfectly. Moving on to HDR, and as you can see with 1000 and 4000 nit HDR signals, the Sony ZF9 is capable of excellent PQ EOTF tracking. Given the brightness on offer, even in the most accurate picture modes and to D65 white, the EOTF tracks almost perfectly, and luminance is also superb with a gentle tone map that is applied to whatever content was mastered to. This gives an incredibly consistent HDR image that requires hardly any mapping to 1000 nits and a gentle roll-off for 4000 nits, retaining peak highlight details as it does so. It does this without dimming the image too much, and there's no need for any aggressive ABL on the ZF9, and we didn't see any employed here whatsoever. Colour gamut coverage to DCI-P3 was also pretty good on the ZF9, with some slight issues with oversaturation in the tracking graph and the odd hue error, but the majority of the gamut is reasonably tracked. Luminance is also good, and overall delta E errors were averaged at just under 4, which is reasonable for an out-of-the-box HDR tracking. We measured the peak brightness to be 1250 nits in the most accurate D65 Cinema HDR mode with a 10% window. The Sony ZF9 uses a VA LCD panel with a filter to help with viewing angles, as well as a 104 zone foul backlight system. There are compromises at play here when it comes to performance by using such a setup. With content such as football with camera pans across a green pitch, which takes up the entire screen, there are issues with vertical banding caused by the backlight columns. This is faint and subtle, so not all viewers will immediately see it, but it is noticeable with fast moving sports and pans over areas of one colour or hue, such as pitches or blue skies. We also noted subtle instances of dirty screen effect with such content, although it was rarer to see this than the issues with vertical bands. Viewing angles are certainly improved by the use of the new X-wide angle filter on the panel, with decent colour reproduction up to at least 60 degrees. In the wake of creating wide viewing angles, it looks like the unintended costs are grey blacks and poor ANSI contrast with a lack of pop. In this side-by-side with an LG C8, we've tried to highlight the issues with the lack of image contrast within dark scenes. You can see that there's far more dynamic range in the C8 image than the ZF9, which is flat and darker. One thing that really disappointed me during testing was the way that the Sony ZF9 handles CinemaScope films and black bars. I initially thought our sample was faulty given how bad the issue was, but it seems that this is actually normal behaviour. When watching films with black bars top and bottom in 240:1, the bars are not inky black all the time while watching. Indeed, the bars light up as intent. Brightening the black bars distracts me from watching my movies and it takes me out of the experience. Being a Sony TV, you should expect that the ZF9 would be good for console gamers, and that is certainly the case in games mode. We measured input lag to be 22 milliseconds in both SDR and HDR. We also found gaming to be a real treat on the ZF9, with excellent HDR consistency, good colour reproduction, and the responsiveness felt as fast as the input lag would suggest. The stereo speakers which make up the sound system are best described as functional and distortion free at normal listening volumes with TV channels. For movies, they do sound rather underwhelming with no weight or dynamics to soundtracks, and it can sound a little hollow and thin most of the time. However, we would imagine that the kind of consumer looking at this size of screen and price point will either have an existing standalone sound solution, or they should certainly consider one if movie watching is a priority. There are a lot of positives with the Sony ZF9 when it comes to the UI, build quality and picture performance. There are also quite a number of weaknesses we've identified during our testing and time spent with the TV, and ultimately what we have is a really mixed bag. We were slightly disappointed with the out-of-the-box measurements as they are a little further away from the standards as you would expect from a Master Series promoted TV, but that doesn't mean the picture quality suffers too much. Indeed, we found SDR playback in the custom mode was very good indeed, with a very compelling image with excellent skin tones and balanced, neutral looking colours. The majority of content we viewed looked balanced and accurate in isolation, and the viewing angles were good. The backlight and local dimming was also, for the most part, decent, with just the odd scene looking a little flat due to the lack of contrast. Black levels were also mostly good, but again, there was the odd occasion where we noticed elevated blacks, but shadow details were excellent, with just a lack of contrast and dynamics. Moving to HDR, we started to find the weaker points of the ZF9, with more obvious elevated blacks and a lack of contrast within scenes. Our main issue was with the haloing and blooming when watching from any angle and the lightening of the black bars in scope films. I found it distracting and incredibly annoying in the time I spent with the ZF9, and being balanced in my assessment, I think the vast majority of those who watch movies would also struggle not to be distracted by this. Obviously, being balanced, there will be those who will not find this an issue at all, so it really depends on what you watch and if you will personally find black bars lighting up every time you watch something distracting or not. We go into far more detail about this TV and more in our written review on AVForums, so head over there now to check it out. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe and press the notification bell to be told when our next review is live. You can find more reviews, news and articles like this at avforums.com, Europe's largest community for TVs, home cinema, movies, games, tech and gadgets. Thanks very much for watching.